Hey there, it's Billy Ray Bates, and welcome to the Fantastic Forum. We have got a very special history-making episode for you this time around for two reasons. The first reason is, for the first time ever, we are taping a whole panel discussion, a whole episode, at an event. We are at Awesome Con, which you can see behind us right here, and we thank them very much for their hospitality. This is exciting. The other reason we're making history today is we have a panel full of ladies, all-female panel today, 4 out of 4 females. It probably has something to do with the subject matter that we're tackling this time around, which is misogyny in comics. Yes, I did just say that. Oops. And so let's introduce our panel and dig into the discussion. We have Bria Livornia. We have Elle Anderson, and we have Abigail Pritchard. So welcome, ladies. This will be a little bit of fun, do you think?
I think there will be
Maybe it's not fair, I don't know.
We can't go back.
Now, there are lots of different aspects that we can talk about with this topic. Lots of different stuff that we can dig into here today. So let me start it out with the big, broad question, okay, first of all. Is there misogyny in comics, in the comics industry? And you know what? I'm going to throw that to Abigail.
Abigail doesn't really think that's even a question. There is definitely misogyny in comics. Being a lady is not entirely comfortable right now. There are certainly some scenarios and issues and forms of representation which are very good. And then there are ones that are terrible.
Elle, what do you think?
I think that absolutely there is misogyny. There's an inevitable, fact that there's going to be old culture is old lingering around comics. Part of the beautiful thing about comics is their rich history, but with that you get problems. However, I also come from a strong background as a gamer, and I do have to say that I feel that comics are in a way almost maligned, because while there is the misogyny problem, it is exponentially better than it is in gaming. So while it is certainly a part of the geek misogyny problem, I would argue that it's one that has a more progressive fan base, if a more regressive company base. And the companies themselves, I would argue, are the source of it far more than the individuals at this point.
Interesting. Okay, and Bria, what do you think?
I might disagree a little bit on the last point, that as someone who is online a lot, and I'm on the blogs, I'm on the websites, and I see all the comments that get thrown around at people. I think it's both the companies and there's definitely individuals, which I guess sort of answers the question. Yes, there is misogyny in comics. However, I will speak up for a fair number of the wonderful guys I've met through the comic book industry who, they're out there, I swear. There are some great people out there who absolutely do not have the problems, but then you go on the internet and you see what, I don't know, some jerk writing for DC Comics has said today, and you go, well, darn, here we are.
On the other hand, in the comment threads, you then often see people chastising them of both genders. Things like the Brian Wood scandal that actually did come to light, whereas my experience, and of course this isn't universal, of course there are bad instances with the bombshell thing particularly, there have been some lately, but with gaming, it's Anita Sarkeesian. There was no one standing on the other side, and there was a female creator recently. There's actually a male creator where they threatened his wife, and so you do have far less of a verbal progressive element that comes alongside. That said, of course, there are idiots online who are misogynistic about comics. I think that's a universal truth.
Yeah. Obligatory disclaimer: not all guys are like that. We're aware of that. On the other hand, if you're a lady on the internet in a geek community, sooner or later you're going to get a rape threat. Sometimes you're going to get lots of rape threats.
Sometimes
I believe that is deeply indicative of a problem. The fact that rape threats are so prevalent that it's just sort of accepted that it's going to happen.
But where do you think that comes from? Why is that even out there? I can't even fathom that.
Male privilege and the fact that they've gotten so used to thinking that this is just a boys' game, even though it hasn't been a boys' game for a while. I mean, women have always been reading comics. Sorry to break it to them. Women have always liked Star Wars. Women have always liked video games. Women have always liked comics. We're just seeing more people being more willing to speak out, especially because they have the they're on the internet now. Like social media has done huge things. Tumblr has done huge things. It's everywhere where they think that just because they haven't seen women coming into the stores every week, that we're not out there.
But women are coming into the stores. We
Yes.
know that. And actually, 3 out of 4 of us have actually worked at a comic shop, and the 4th has shopped a lot at a comic shop. So talk about those experiences. I mean, how are you treated as a female in a comic shop?
When you work there, I found that you get challenged. And there's a point where you sort of feel like, I sort of have an ingrained sense of I need to always be on the defense. I had a very careful plan for like what I wore, so I didn't want to look like too girly because I needed them to take me seriously. I feel like I always had to be proving my knowledge because otherwise I go, oh, you're a fake geek girl, even though you could have been reading comics and know more about them.
But what is a fake geek girl? You know, I mean, what do
Well,
they think that
it's a whole separate
why
concept.
would we
I
be
mean,
pretending?
Much
think
like a
that-
unicorn, it's a myth.
Exactly. I think that a lot of people, and I'm not sure if you've had this as well, I think you probably have, is when they come in and they go, so do they require you to read the comics here? And my
okay,
answer
I
is
can
always
see
no.
that.
I'm privileged to be able to borrow some of these sometimes. Like, I am privileged to get to see more of these books than I otherwise would. The question that I get more than anything else is, who is your favorite Spider-Man? Now, that sounds like the most innocuous question in the world. There's 1,000 questions they could ask. They ask that one because there are big changes happening there soon. And so knowing your answer is supposed to indicate that you know there are big changes happening either in the Ultimate Spider-Man universe or in the normal Spider-Man universe. So that's the litmus test. At a certain point, after about the 5th boy from southern states who came in, and they were all about, for some reason we had a plague of like 18-year-old boys from southern states coming in on school trips and asking me who my favorite Spider-Man was. And after about the 5th time, first I was giving them psychoanalysis of Dr. Octopus's brain, but that took a while. So after a while, I just started going, son, do you know what a litmus test is? And then they would all either ask me and then get pale and leave, or just get pale and leave. And it's like, I'm not even asking you to leave the store. Do you know what you just did? And you just said, I don't believe you. Prove it to me. And that was the first thing you said to me when you came into the store.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah, it was a very rare day working at the comic shop where some guy didn't come in, and it was actually almost always phrased the same way with this sort of bead of condescension. So, do you actually read the comics? And it never happened to any of the guys at the store. And I started off sort of fluttering my eyelashes and putting on my girliest voice and going, no, I just like looking at the pretty pictures. And eventually I just got tired of it. Just, would you be asking me that if I was a dude? I was like, well, tell me about this, issue of Green Lantern. And I was like, I don't care about Green Lantern, but let me tell you my feelings about Brian K. Vaughan. The idea is women being are constantly sort of put to the test, right? If you don't know enough, you're not a real fan. And what you have to know enough about is whatever they're interested in. Any guy who's going to come into the comic book store and challenge a female employee or a female fan is going to weight the competition towards what he knows and he likes, which is often very different. And I think they often use that as this springboard to be like, well, the girls don't know as much as me because she failed my test. You failed their test, ergo you're not a real geek. Ergo, there are all these poser fake geek girls saying that they're real fans when they're clearly not.
Raising, of course, the inevitable question of why are we posing? Do you guys really all feel that you're that attractive? Because some of you are. I mean, I've dated a couple, but like,
but they're
a lot of
usually
them,
not
I'm
that
sorry, honey,
guy.
I don't want to date you. Like, why would you think I would fake this?
Normally the guys who think you would fake this are not the ones you would
Exactly.
actually want to date.
No.
Comics are too expensive to be faking that.
Exactly.
That is true
Sorry.
as well.
Yeah,
Way too
and
much
like
effort.
cosplaying too. I mean, are we just wearing costume because we think it looks cool and we've never read the subject matter, or are we really into it and do we have to prove that? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm barely willing to wear high-heeled boots for guys, much less spandex.
And like, yeah, we volunteered to get all the weird looks on the subway on the way, get all the judgmental remarks behind your back, like, oh, she shouldn't be wearing that, she's got bulges, whatever. Like, oh yeah, we're doing all of that for you guys. It's not because we feel awesome dressed like Emma Frost or whatever. Oh yeah.
Okay, well, this has been an interesting discussion, and we've got more discussion. But first of all, we've got something else special for you to look at, and then we will be back.
I'm Devon, and we are in Baltimore, and we are with the very talented Gail Simone at Baltimore Comic Con. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good, and I'm really sorry for the people that aren't here with us because it's been an amazing convention. A lot of great people here all weekend.
So what are you working on right now besides Red Sonja?
Tomb Raider for Dark Horse, and I just finished up my Batgirl run, and I'm moving on to Secret Six. The new 52 Secret Six will be coming out in December with Ken Lashley on the interiors and David Eaglesham on designs and covers. So I'm very excited about that. It is really a smoking book.
Well, you've had a pretty good long run with Barbara Gordon, and that's come to an end. So how do you feel about that? Is it like losing a friend? Are you just ready to move on? What?
It's kind of, there's a lot of weird mixed emotions. I sort of liken it to a divorce, that you're divorcing somebody that you really love and that you don't really want to divorce necessarily. So I go through that kind of period where I don't really think about Batgirl as much as I was before, and I sort of start trying to, get some distance so that I can move on to something else, like you would if a relationship broke up. But she's my favorite character. I've written her for a lot of years. That's been a great honor, and it's really been a fulfilling experience for me. And I feel like I could write Barbara Gordon stories forever, but it's time to do some other things, and that's why I'm really excited about Secret Six and some creator-owned projects I have coming out in 2015.
Everyone's been talking about women within the comics industry lately, and I hate to bring it to this, but you're a woman in the comics industry, so I'm going to ask this question of you. Do you think that it's not so much that it is a rise of the women in the comics industry, or is it finally that it's just being noticed?
Well, it's a combination of both. I think, when comics first were created and first were coming out, everyone read them. And then we went through this period where, less and less females were reading them in particular, and the ones of us who did were kind of considered aliens almost, and there wasn't as many female creators in comparison to male creators for a while, and I think that's changing. The internet has opened up, given people voices, given other ways to tell stories that that more people can get exposed to. The conventions are definitely a lot more 50-50 gender than they were 10 years ago, which all of it's good. This should be an open medium and have things for everyone to enjoy, and creators too. It's just been my absolute delight to see so many new female creators coming in as creators, editors, all aspects of the industry, and winning awards and being recognized. And pretty soon, I bet we're not going to have so many panels that are titled Women in Comics. It's just going to be writers or comics about this or something. We won't be having those distinctions as much and as often. Or we might see dudes in comics panels.
All right. So what excites you the most about what's going on in comics right now for you personally?
I just think that seeing it open up and seeing the diversity of stories and characters and ways to tell a story, and whether it's going to be digital or on paper or organized differently, it's just very exciting to see people put their creative energy into something and giving us more content, better content, and just a lot of diversity, and kids comics, adult comics, everything in between, and it's not just one type of comic being printed multiple times, and I'm very excited about that.
Try to stay away from the term drone and look for unmanned aerial vehicles. When you say drone, it tends to conjure up images of devices that are weaponized, or it has more of a negative connotation to it. I am a wedding photographer, and my niche market is Indian weddings. And a lot of Indian weddings, if you're familiar with them, have ceremonies that take place outside. And I thought it would be a unique way to capture that experience outside from the air, flying first-person point of view, as I do with my app from my Apple iPhone 5S. It just makes it a lot easier. So it's relatively easy to operate. And I make it a point to fly every day just to practice flying and maneuvering. The device has a GPS system that will identify, I believe, Class A and Class B airports. If you're within a certain range and in GPS mode, it will not allow you to take off. So GPS has that built-in security measure that says, based on the restricted airspace that you're in, we're not going to allow you to fly. In other situations, you may be in restricted airspace, but they'll just put a ceiling on how high you can fly. There's an interface with the app that tells you altitude, battery power, speed, miles per hour. Right now, I'm at 400 feet, which is almost half of what it's capable of. You can barely see it.
You can't even see it.
But then we can rotate, using the controls, we can rotate the device while it's in the air, point it away from the sun so we have a better look. That's DC at sunset. Then up here, it's the battery. I'm connected to 10 satellites for GPS purposes. The radio transmitter's at 50%. And I'm actually recording full 1080 HD video right now. The battery life is 25 minutes, and that's if you fly it at regular conditions. The higher you go, the more the harder the propeller has to spin. So obviously, if you're at a higher altitude, you're cutting into that 25 minutes. If I fly at high altitude, usually like 15 minutes or so, somewhere in that neighborhood. When you first start, you have to calibrate it. It has like a gyroscope in it. You can actually tilt the camera by tilting the device. And so you have to calibrate the unit each time you fly, just to say, if I tilt this way, I want you to raise the camera up. If I tilt down, tilt the camera down.
Welcome back to the Fantastic Forum, and in today's episode we are talking about misogyny in comics. We have an all-female panel. We love that, and we're at AwesomeCon. We really love that. So let's continue the discussion. You know, we know that there are fewer females working in comics than men. Where do you think that comes from? Do you think that little girls don't really desire to grow up and be in comics, or is it a lack of opportunity? I mean, or is it something else?
I would argue that it's actually a little bit of both. There are studies that show that fields like technical art, things like that, start to fall off beginning in elementary school for women as they get pressure against that sort of thing. But also, I think you see very telling things like the recent drop-off when the New 52 hit. And I apologize if I get my statistics incorrect, but I believe it went from 12% to 1% females employed by DC. And at some point, someone asked Dan Didio why he didn't replace them with more females. And the thing that is scary to me about that isn't that he said, who would you hire? It was that he said, who should I hire? Like it was ludicrous. Like, who should I hire? Yeah. Why would you expect that we could do that? Like, I don't know if he meant Kelly Sue DeConnick won't work with us, or if he meant, do you honestly think I should go and do that? But I feel like that message, it gets heard.
Kelly
It's
Sue.
a horrible, never-ending loop, though, because you see it's so much harder for a woman to break into the industry, and then you see the trouble they have to go up against, all the sexism that they have to face, and all the harassment they have to face. And I mean, you can't help but go, maybe this is not what I want to set myself up for. I mean, it's a very hard industry to break into, regardless of your gender. Like, that's just a proven fact. But I mean, obviously, there's plenty of women out there who have the talent. I mean, aside from Kelly Sue and Gail Simone, I mean, you've got some amazing female artists out there. I mean, just look at Emma Rios. Is anyone even doubt that she's amazing? Annie Wu, who's on Hawkeye.
Fiona Staples.
Yep. Who's going to doubt that the woman on Saga is like amazing artist? I mean, there's other writers out there too. Karina Becco writes for Dark Horse right now. She's been writing the new Star Wars book. There's the women out there. I feel like they're just not given the fair opportunity a lot of times.
If you have a little girl who goes into a comic shop and has the kind of experiences with, you know, the people who work there or the people who are shopping there that we have had as female fans, that little girl is going to go, screw this, Disney's catering to me. And I think if you grow up feeling unwelcome in an industry, you're not going to bend over backwards trying to work in that industry. And then there are shining moments of delight, right? Where, like when Gail Simone got fired from Batgirl and the internet went ballistic.
Yeah, they literally just said no.
Yeah, and they had to
DC,
hire her back.
Who was ignoring all kinds of negative press about everything in the universe. They couldn't take that. The internet just went, no, you're not doing that.
And if he tried to hire Kelly Sue DeConnick, she'd step on him.
Oh, of course she would. That's he
giant
probably
heels.
has nightmares about
Giant heels.
She's got giant spiked
Tiny little lady in
Just
the
ask her
giant
whole
heels.
whore to step on him for her. But
Also
you know,
true.
like
And we
I
would.
think about the moment when I first read a comic book, and I'd read Calvin and Hobbes before, but I'd never actually read a serious comic book until about a year and a half ago, when I went in looking for a book that it was mentioned in one of my class textbooks. And it wasn't there, but there was a great guy at the store, and he gave me a recommendation for Hawkeye. And I read it, and I went back, and I got another recommendation from another gentleman there, and they were both polite. They didn't treat me oddly, and they gave me recommendations for books that were accessible to me. If those three things did not happen, I would not be running a nonprofit that's about comic books right now. I would have turned around and walked away, and it would be about video games alone.
When you think about it, a comic store only hurts itself if they treat female fans poorly.
You would think that they would encourage
I mean,
all
yeah.
fans, female, whatever. And women are known consumers.
Yeah.
Women are consumers women are the ones who purchase in the family usually.
And now that
so-
there's digital comics, they don't have to go into the stores. If you're going to treat a woman like crap, she can just download it, right?
And yet we have Cartoon Network on record saying that girls don't buy geek equipment. And I'm sorry to bring it up.
Everybody
It's the
here
most
is bitter
obvious
about
way
it.
not.
So
And
bitter about
everyone
Young
is bitter about
Young
it.
Justice!
And it's so easy to get angry about it, but the fact remains that they are on record as saying little girls don't buy things. They want t-shirts and princess things, boys buy toys.
Little girls.
And little girls,
And this-
I'm a little girl, you ought to see how much money I spend on toys.
Okay, so there's been some hot topics recently, some controversies, I guess you'd call them, that really relate to how females are treated in the industry. Like, take for instance the casting of Wonder Woman.
Oh boy.
And the upcoming, and I hate to keep bringing up DC. I love DC. I've read DC all my life. I love Wonder Woman. I love Batgirl. I love Batman.
DC deserves it
But
because Marvel's been treating women so much better.
DC, we love
I'm
you,
sorry.
love you, make us keep hitting you, basically.
It's true.
But the casting of Wonder Woman, I know, Abigail, you were involved in a Facebook discussion, a long Facebook discussion about that one. So how does that affect how females are treated in the industry? I mean, how does that illustrate some of the things that we're talking about?
I mean, I think the casting of Wonder Woman in a live action movie was very reflective of a lot of the way that women are drawn in comics, right? There's this whole idea where men are drawn as a male power fantasy and women are drawn as a male sexual fantasy, right? So women go to these comics and they're not the visual target audience. And when Wonder Woman was cast, the role goes to this ex-soldier, right? And we don't know what she's going to look in the movie. And immediately, everything is inundated with her body is wrong, right? Wonder Woman is sort of this icon of female empowerment where your body is not supposed to be wrong no matter what it looks like. And when Ben Affleck was cast, which was only a little bit before that, everybody was talking about his performance and whether that would be a problem. But the most iconic female superhero of all time gets cast. Nobody cares if this woman has the acting chops for it. The entire front Google page was, she doesn't look right. Right? She is there for your visual aesthetic. No. I was displeased with this mentality, and I expressed it, and some people expressed some feelings back, and et cetera, et cetera.
And it's a shame because I have huge issues with the current run of Wonder Woman, but one of the things they've done with her is take her more in a soldier direction. I hesitate to say soldier,
yeah,
but you
there
see
you
her
go.
wielding other weapons. You see her from more of a combative perspective. Honestly, I kind of am not bothered whether she winds up hugely curvaceous or not. It's a huge problem that she has to, though. It's a huge problem that it's not an option to cast her as she is.
Well,
and that they had to run out and go, we're training her, we're changing how she looks.
I would like her to be bulkier simply because I feel like the Hollywood aesthetic is you get a role if you're a stick, and otherwise no, right? So
Absolutely.
I'd like her to sort of change that mentality, but at the same time, we don't know what she's going to look like. And my real problem was the fact that with men, it's carrying the character and then what you look like down here, right? With women, it's what you look up like up here, and can you say all of your lines in the right order down here?
If I could take a second to quote Megan Fox from before she went completely off the social rails, at one point she said, I don't know if I'm a good actress. No one's ever asked me to act. They asked me to stand around and look hot, and I've done it because it's profitable. And, you know, someday maybe I'll actually try acting, but I haven't yet, and I haven't needed to.
Insane. Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the Teen Titans cover that was discussed recently that
my
met with some
God.
criticism too. The Powder Puff Girls art, like several months ago, that also created a firestorm. So
You know,
it's like, what does all
There's
that
always
say?
some art creating a firestorm.
But
is.
let me take I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, it's ridiculous that when you see the ridiculous costumes, the ridiculous poses, and then we speak up against it, saying like, can you not? And then when you look at the flip side of the coin, for example, Chris Anker designed a new costume for Psylocke, which I adore. It's logical. It's a bodysuit. It makes sense for a ninja to be jumping around and kicking people's butts in it. And people started telling him, "Oh, you must hate hot women. Like she can't possibly look sexy in something all like that." And it's like you don't want to take function into account, but
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, that reminds me of when they redesigned Wonder Woman to have pants, and I thought the
Yeah,
outfit
that was
great.
huge.
And then
That
I was
was
like,
huge.
why is everyone so mad? Now I
dare she
understand
wear
why
pants?
everyone was mad, because they gave her pants.
I'm just still waiting for her to get rid of the tube top. Have they never tried to walk around with a tube top?
Especially, if they're so concerned with her having a big rack.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, well, the time has flown quickly, and we wish we could talk more about this, but this is the end of the episode. I want to thank our panelists today. Send us your comments if you'd like to, and check out the web page, check out the Facebook page. We want to thank the folks at AwesomeCon for hosting us here, and we are going to be taping a couple more episodes, so watch for more from AwesomeCon. And thank you very much for our new sponsor, Victory Comics, as well. So we'll see you next time.
Join the Fantastic Forum fan community on Facebook and follow us on Twitter for all the latest news and updates.